What's going on, guys? Aaron from Top Tier Gaming here, and today I am coming at you with a brand new tier list video for the new Power of the Elements format here in August. And yeah, the brand new set just got released and it introduced a lot of powerful strategies that really mixed up the meta. So we are going to go through all of the decks that we did in our last tier list and all the decks that were playable last format along with the new decks and sort of see how the meta has shifted. Now, I did just play in a regional this last weekend, which was the first weekend of regionals in the new format. So I'm going to be using a lot of insight I got from that regional on what the format looks like now, some sort of first-hand experience at the format. And yeah, hopefully we can make a really good tier list out of all of these decks. And before we get into this video, I do want to let you guys know, Discord link down below if you want to follow the channel more closely, along with all of our other social media links. Also, I am trying to hit 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year, so if you do like this Yu-Gi-Oh content, feel free to like and subscribe. It really helps me out in what I do here on the channel. And without further ado, let's get into this tier list. Alright, so getting into this tier list here, I realized I had to change the tiering options here, so I went ahead and did that really quickly. But going on with the first deck, we have ABC, and this is, the Brave ABC Therion deck. This deck didn't lose anything, but with, Power of the Elements coming out, and a lot of new decks coming out, it feels less strong than it was maybe a month ago, and it lost a lot of steam in the last couple of months, so I'm going to go ahead and rank this as like a not this format. I feel like, in general, a lot of the things that were okay last format, like I had this much higher last format, it's just not as good as it was because there's more decks to compete with. So I'm going to say that ABC, like, they're not even the best version of even Therion right now, potentially. So yeah, I think it's a good deck in general, but this format, it's definitely a little weaker. Then we have Phantom Knight. Now, interestingly enough, Phantom Knight potentially got like a new card out of Power of the Elements. I don't even know if I really want to call it that. But the new rank 3 Xyz like could be played in here, but honestly, PK, they lost a lot of their options a couple formats ago when they lost the way to DPE and scything. It's like an okay deck. It still makes like a decent board and can set Fog Blade, which are really good because things like Dark Ruler are very popular right now. That being said, I'm still just gonna put it in not this format. I wouldn't even say it's like a super good like rogue deck right now. This format compared to last is definitely a little more strict on the list because the decks aren't as close in power as I feel they were like last Nationals format. Now we do have a potential ban list coming up soon that could even shake this list up quite a bit. But going off the format we currently have now, I don't think these two decks are that good. BA, that's also not this format. It's just, they need 3 Beatrice bad. Konami, just bring us 3 Beatrice and then BA will be a little more playable. It still won't be great, but I would like to play it with 3 Beatrice, so that'd be nice. Pendulum. To be honest, Pendulum is again not this format. I feel bad putting like the first 4 decks in this tier, but they're just not really doing anything right now. Like, I think Pendulum and Dimension Force got a huge upgrade with Beyond the Pendulum, but they're still just not putting out the same boards as a lot of other combo decks as consistently. Like, Pendulum have a crazy end board, but can they do it as well as a deck like Sprite can? No. So they're also just weaker to things like Anti-Spell that just absolutely shut it down. So we're gonna put it in not this format. Then we have Plunder Patrol. Definitely a favorite of mine. It's a deck I haven't really played, but I just love this archetype. I think it is so cool. Interestingly enough, like the new decks that are out right now, like Sprite and Tier, they are attributes that are favorable for something like Plunder. And I do think the deck is strong, but is it like even a rogue option right now? It's tough. It's tough. I really like Plunder, but I just feel like it's not as good. Like, it did get, some slots at Nationals before Power of the Elements, showing that the deck was good in my previous Nationals tier list. I was really hoping for it to get those slots. But yeah, Plunder, honestly, maybe I should be a little less strict here and put more things in Rogue. Because, like, the thing with this format is we don't know how big Rogue is yet. And, like, how many decks are playable into the new decks. It's a very, early start to this format. I'm going to choose to put it in Rogue just almost so we have something in this slot right now. I think Plunder's pretty good. Honestly, I feel like ABC Therion could be there as well if I was going to do this, but we're going to leave the list like this. Hero, what's funny? I'm going to put this deck in Rogue because there were actually so many Hero decks at the regional. With the new support from Power of the Elements, there's a hand loop variant of heroes that is being shown off a lot more recently, where you can loop 4 cards from your opponent's hand. Pretty consistently, actually, and of course Dark Law is amazing right now, same way like D-Shifter's amazing. I saw a lot of heroes at the regional, and I saw them doing pretty okay with like the new support as well. So I'm going to put it in rogue options. Dark Law is almost never not good. And Nibiru is theoretically being played less right now, which is huge for heroes. They're one of the only decks that still has access to DPE. I think heroes can be like a good rogue option right now, at least at the start of this format. DDD, interestingly enough, I saw quite a bit of this at the regional, but it wasn't doing super well. What's really good about it is that through Dark Ruler, it still has a trap card interrupt, which is nice, but I'm going to put this in not this format. Despia. I'm going to put this in strong picks. Like, this deck was getting played a lot. Like, not even the tier version. Like, people were playing branded Despia. Like, it just... most people, I would say, added the tier element cards to it, and they're playing, like, a branded deck with smaller tier engines, and they're doing really well. It just helped branded be better. The argument is whether, you know, is it or tier better. I think I'll show that later on in the tier list, what I think personally, but I think branded Despia is a pretty strong pick right now. And Mirror Jade is still just an insane card. I still despise this card. It's so good. Dinomorphia, I'm going to put this deck in rogue options. The thing about Dinomorphia is it's really good versus some parts of Sprite. Like, if you get low enough and they can't search Smashers, Rex destroys still that deck. But a huge problem for Dinomorphia right now is the release of Tier Element. The field spell just crushes Rex's dreams. And, like, yes, you can have one of your interrupts for the field spell, like Sonic, or one of your Judgments or something like that. But the fact that the main interrupt or floodgate in your engine is very weak to both Smashers and the field spell makes me think that Dinomorphia took a huge hit with Power of the Elements. But I think overall there's a lot of decks where Rex is just super good against, and he's still just actually a very toxic card, so I'll still put it in Rogue. Dinosaur, I'm going to put it in not this format. I do think that, like, Tyranno got maybe a little better because it can destroy a Sprite board if they don't have Smashers. Like, he's just coming down and he is going to swing. So, I think, like, while we have those combo decks that we do right now, Tyranno's not a bad card. But Dinosaur in general, they're just weaker through interruptions. They don't play as many, like, Ghost second cards. They have less flex for sure. I'm going to put it in not this format, but, like, I don't really know if Dinomorphia is, like, the better Dinosaur deck right now. So that's interesting to think about. We have Therions, which is, like, this is Punk Therion and stuff, and this just fell off the map, like, hard with Power of the Elements from what I've seen. I did not see a single one at the regional. I'm going to put this in all solid, you know, it might even be not this format, but I'll put it in Rogue. I mean, the deck didn't get any weaker than it was, and it was still, like, a decent deck, so it's probably still fine. Dragon Maid, not this format. This deck is really good in formats like Tri-Brigade format or Prank-Kid format, where bouncing a normal summon is like a huge interrupt. So Dragon Maid, definitely not this format. Dragoon Turbo stuff, you know, this is for like the Guru players or like the hard Dark Magician players, anything that's just helmeting with Dragoon. Also, I think at the beginning of a format like we are right now, this card's actually not terrible. Like, Dragoon himself at the beginning of a format is usually better, but everyone is maining Dark Ruler, and even though Ash is being played less, so maybe your Red Eyes Fusion is safer, there's so many board-breaking Go second cards in the format right now, like, I'm just going to put him in not this format. Eldritch, I think, is either a rogue option or a strong pick. I saw a couple of them. Like, Floodgates are really good, especially at the start of a format where not everyone knows what they're doing. I think Eldritch could be a pretty strong contender this format, just because there can be only one is pretty strong against Sprite, and again, Floodgates are good. And also, like, Eldritch can do a lot of things with Branded as well. There's a few variant of Eldritch, so I think Eldritch is pretty strong. M-Pen Turbo is definitely still strong, unfortunately. Flunder is a really good deck. It beats a lot of the current new meta decks at the very least, and it's still going as strong as it was before. Exosister I'm going to put in strong picks as well. There was a lot of this at the regional. I mean, it's right now early format. It's just been presumed from the OCG that Exosisters are going to be good here. And I don't think the deck's as strong as like we initially thought. At least right now, I think it's better once the Ishizu cards come out and you're more likely to play Tier Element, which is like your best matchup. But I still think right now a lot of people are playing this deck. Drytron, I think Drytron's very good. It is, again, a deck that didn't get any weaker. I'm going to put it in strong pick because Drytron is a very powerful combo deck that can literally skip your turn if they go for that route. They can also just go for Vanity's Ruler, which is huge. They have so many different unfair things they can go for. And its engine is not bad going second. And also in Power of the Elements, it got Ultimate Slayer, which is really nice in this deck because you are already playing things like Natisse and Herald of Arclight. And now you can use those with your Ultimate Slayer anyways, and it's just like a card that fits nice in your deck because you are already maining those cards. Altergeist, not this format. We do not like Faker. Faker is not it, okay? So Faker is not this format. I feel like a lot of trap decks right now, besides Eldritch, have this thing where they're just a trap deck that's not as good as Eldritch. So I'm going not this format. Libromancer, I'll put in a rogue option. I think that Scythe is still very powerful as a card for sure, but with more people playing Dark Ruler and Hulk being our main way to summon Scythe, like Scythe is actually taking a hit with more main deck Dark Rulers. Unless you're a deck that can summon it during standby with Baron or something like that. But Libromancer, again, didn't get any weaker, and I think it is one of the best Scythe decks, so I think it's pretty good right here. So then we have Earth Machine, which I'm going to put in not this format. I think the deck is fine, like Regulus is good, it's like a solid deck, but it's not doing anything better than a lot of these decks up here, and it doesn't even play through interrupts as well as it feels like it used to, and right now with all the hard go second cards, I think it's a little better because Earth Machine doesn't really care about those as much. But overall, yeah, I just don't think it's very strong right now. Adagnister, I'm going to put in a rogue option. I think I've seen a lot of Adagnister recently, and it's been mixing with Mathmech, so it's kind of hard where I want to place this. Is it like Adagnister that's doing good, or it's specifically Mathmech Adagnister? That deck doesn't have a lot of testing either, so it's really tough. But I do think it's been doing okay, so I'm willing to put it in rogue. Alistair, not this format. There is a better Winda deck right now if it even, if it decides to go for Winda. But yeah, Alistair is like the slowest version of a better deck right now, so we're going to put him in not this format. Tri-Brigade, I'm going to put in rogue, and this could be specifically Tri-Brigade Sprite. I've seen more Tri-Sprite than I have of regular Tri-Brigade this format, like Bird Up. So I'm not sure how good that would personally be, but at the regional, I saw quite a bit of Tri-Sprite, at least 2 or 3 people on it when I was just walking around, and it's a deck that can perform, so I do think it's a good rogue option. Madolche, interestingly enough, I think there was a smaller tournament, maybe just an OTS tournament or something, where Madolche did really well, and I think one of the interesting things is that Glass Souffle actually got quite a bit better. Last format and Nationals format before Power of the Elements, I was like, wow, Glass Souffle is terrible, so Madolche is not that good. But if your opponent activates almost any tier card that mills, you can detach for Glass Souffle, and then they're going to go ahead and mill, and then their effects are going to be Chain Link 1, 2, or however many they mill, and then you're the last thing in the Chain Link, and you can just shuffle everything they activated back to the deck. And that's very good in the case of tier element monsters, so Glass Souffle is not bad, and it also hits Sprite because it can hit Ronin Totem specifically, but also any other grave things they might want. So Glass Souffle got better. I don't know if I'm willing to put this in rogue options because Madolche definitely still has some problems, but it can also main D-Shifter. You know what? I'm going to go on a limb here and say this is actually rogue. Not many people are playing it, but I think in the rogue category, if you want to play something that's not super high meta, I think Madolche it's definitely better than it was before Power of the Elements, which is very interesting to me. And also, the deck has a lot of extra flex spots in its extra deck, so you could fit something like Ultimate Slayer, again, very nicely. Sky Striker, I'll put it in rogue. I don't think it's that good, but I think Mystic Mine Turbo is still a fine option for now, so Sky Striker as a conduit for Mystic Mine is still fine. Adamancipator, not this format, it's just there's a better RNG related deck right now, so we're going to put Adamancipator here. Salamangreat, not this format either. There's just too many better Cyburst decks right now. Why play Salad when Marincess exists and Adagnister exists and Mathmech exists? It's really hard to argue for Salad. Buzzsaw Shark, not it. Not very... Sharks are not doing much right now for sure. Kragan plus Gogzen match is still crazy, but definitely a not this format. Weather Painter, I think Weather Painter is interesting because it's a deck that plays Mystic Mine, Skill Drain, and D-Shifter. So, I feel like this deck can always, be really toxic at a tournament and do decent enough, but not a lot of people are on it. Sun Avalon. Now this is interesting because I just realized I have Sun Avalon on this list from last format, and I also have Rika. So this picture of Loci will be specifically like the Brave Therion Sun Avalon deck, which I think is just not the best version of Sun Avalon anymore, so I'm going to put it in not this format. Swap Frog here does not represent Sprite. This represents Paleo, which actually, you know, got a lot better with the Sprite engine. Like, I've seen what Paleo does now when it has Gigantic Sprite and Elf, and I've seen it do some actually crazy things, so I'm going to put it in Rogue Options. I don't know if it's actually very good, but it definitely got a huge upgrade. Sword Soul I'm going to put in strong picks. There were a lot of players on Sword Soul at the regional, which I was sort of surprised by. And it was like doing okay. Like, it didn't end up topping at the regional I was at, but I definitely saw some Sword Souls at the top tables. And the deck is just a strong, solid deck that does what it wants to do, and, you know, it's pretty good. Dragon Link, definitely a strong pick. Dragon Link, again, didn't lose anything. They're still super powerful, and it's still doing exactly what Dragon Link has always done, so nothing much to say here. Trap Tricks, not this format. They did get a new card in the Trap card, Draco Utopian Aura, which I think helps a lot of trap decks, and specifically one like Trap Tricks is a really good example where it really wants to have traps and something to negate monsters going second. But that being said, it's just not that good. Evil Twin, I'm also going to put in not this format. There are just better Cyburst decks, like Marincess is arguably better than Evil Twin, and Mathmech's better than Evil Twin, so it's really hard to justify playing Evil Twins right now, but Trouble Sunny got a lot better with Ultimate Slayer as just like a one-card tech, so that's cool. Marincess, I think I'm gonna put this in Rogue Option. I don't think it's a strong pick anymore right now. I haven't tested Marincess enough, to be honest, but the thing is, like, this format calls for more hard interrupts like Gamma or things that really remove things from the board, specifically in like the Sprite matchup, so Wave got less good because it's a softer interrupt. I still think the deck is arguably I don't even know if it's the best Cyburst deck. I think it has competition with Mathmech right now. In a format where softer interrupts are fine, like we had in the Nationals format, I think Marincess is probably the best Cyburst deck. But yeah, I'm going to put it in Rogue Options. We're going to have Agents, not this format. The deck's cool, but it's not doing anything. Virtual World, I think Shen is right now just still not as good as he has been in the past. So we're going to go in not this format. Like, there are formats where Shen Chuche is just game, and I think when we're in a format like that, Virtual World is at least a rogue option, bare minimum, but right now, that board doesn't seem very good, so. And here we have a picture of Xiamen, so this is going to represent Pure Punk because that's the deck that sort of got more popular recently, and I think Pure Punk is actually pretty good. I'm going to put it in strong picks. Like, I've definitely seen it perform at the regional I went to personally, and you know, there's a lot of players looking at Pure Punk right now like it's a pretty good option. Extreme Jam Session is insane. Shinobi Necro is really good. Gizmek's really good. Like, it's playing a bunch of good cards with Pot of Greed, like even on your opponent's turn, and a bunch of hand traps. So I think it's a good deck. I think it's above Rogue Options, but definitely not like the best deck by any means. Zombie, it's an okay deck. Maybe it's even a Rogue Option. The problem is, I don't think Zombie World is very good versus the top meta right now. Like, it's good versus some of the Rogue Options and some of the strong picks, but not versus the top meta, so I'm going to put it in not this format. Harpy Ladies, definitely not this format right now. The deck sort of just needs a little, it needs a boost. It really does need something. Harpy Ladies have been weak for a while now. The only deck to go in Dumpster Fire, Prank Kids. This deck is just not a deck. You see, these are Lamseys, so this is what set the dumpster on fire. This deck is pretty much, you know, it's like a coaster. You set your drink on your Prank Kids deck because it's not a deck. And that's where we like to see it. Sorry, all you Prank Kids players, but Meow Moo is gone, and this deck is gone. So, on to the next deck. We have Mathmech here, one of the, not new decks, but it got support and power of the elements that made it much better. I'm going to put Mathmech in strong pick. I do think this deck is pretty crazy. I'm putting it higher than Marincess on this tier list, which pains me to do because I love Marincess, but Mathmech is truly quite insane. Like, it's a really good deck. Like, Super Factorial is a crazy card. Then we have Rika, which recently I actually got top 8 at the Fort Worth Regional with Rika. It was a deck I tested for a couple weeks before the event, and I was like, yeah, this deck's pretty insane. So, you know, personally, I think the deck's really good. I'm going to put it in strong picks. I think there's an argument for Rogue Option, but I do think Rika does some very unfair things. Like, tributing your opponent's monsters as cost to get additional negates or benefits is such an insane like mechanic. It's really disgusting, to be honest. And then breaking boards with your field spell just also feels so good. And I think the deck's really consistent. The Sun Avalon stuff really helps it have a lot of power. It can play through interrupts, it can play a decent amount of hand traps, and yeah, I think the deck's really strong. Is it the best deck in my opinion? No, definitely not, but I think it's a strong pick. The Kyrushin deck, interestingly enough, I did see one of these at the top tables at my regional, and I think it could be a good rogue option because there's not really any water decks right now. Like, its worst matchup is Marincess by far because it just doesn't care, but if you can stick this guy, like, he's an insane floodgate, so I think he's a decent card. I'll list it as rogue just because I saw it do well at the regional. I'm really interested to see what this deck can do this format if more people decide to play it. Next, we have Sprite. So this is probably one people have been waiting for, as the newer decks were at sort of the bottom of this tier list to talk about. Sprite, obviously we have a best deck section up top that still needs to be filled, and down here we have Sprite and Tier Limit. And I do think one of these is probably the best deck right now, and I am going to go with Sprite. Honestly, when I played it at the regional, this deck was insane. Like, its first turn board is so consistent to get to. It can play so many flex spots, it plays through interruptions with its engine, and its first turn board is disgusting, and it's actually really powerful. Now, it's nowhere near, in my opinion, the tier 0 things people were, scared about for so long because we saw the numbers in the OCG and we were horrified. I don't think this deck is near as good here as it was in the OCG. Like, I don't think this deck is that much better than the decks under it. In fact, I played 4 Sprite at the regional and I beat 3 of them with Rika. So this deck's super beatable. It's super good, but it's not tier 0 by any means. But I am going to say it's the best deck right now. And, I could be getting swayed by the fact that people are really playing it right now because it's new, they want to test it. Did really well in a lot of regionals this last weekend, but who knows if that's just people playing with their brand new toy. I do think it's really strong, though, and, this could change, especially if we get a ban list in the next couple of weeks. I do think they're going to try to push Sprite to be the best deck for now. But, yeah, I am going to put Sprite at number 1. And then Tier Limit, I'm going to put in strong pick. This deck's insane, and, there's quite a few versions of it. There's Pure, there's Branded, there is, what is the other version? I actually saw a Tier Element Frog variant. There's Punk Tier Element, so I guess there's punks of a lot of different versions. There's like Punk Sprite, Punk Tier, there's Pure Punk, there's Punk, what's the other, like any teleport Punk stuff. And yeah, Tier Limit, just talking about it, it has a lot of versions. It's really strong. It can do a lot of things. It can play turn 0. Yeah, the deck's very powerful and has a lot of good options as well. So that is going to be it for this tier list. Just looking at it, I don't think anything is absurd. I mean, starting off with the tier list, it felt rough because we were just putting every deck and not this format, but it looks like we actually have a good spread. Like, Sprite, I'm considering the best deck, but he honestly is in here with strong picks with all the rest, and we have a lot of really good decks this format. So to me, it's not looking like a tier 0 format by far. It's not even looking like a 3-deck format when people were predicting it was Sprite, Tier, and Exo Sister. Looking like we have at least 6 or 7 decks that are pretty strong and even more that can definitely compete. So I think this format's shaping up to be nice. Ban list isn't here yet, so who knows what it will look like after the ban list, if it will just make Sprite dominant. But yeah, looking like not that terrible of a format. So that is going to be it for this tier list video. I hope you guys enjoyed. Leave your opinions down below, how you would rank the decks differently, what you think the best deck this format is, how you think Power of the Elements changed it up. But yeah, that being said, this has been Aaron from Top Tier Gaming. Bye, YouTube.